I made it. Faye helped me. She put slats on, and this here is mounted on a wagon chassis. And it had a reach underneath there you could lengthen out. And in after harvest, we'd tip them off from the wagon and turn them upside down so the storms wouldn't blow them and tear them up. I and a brother Cap made 2 of these in my lifetime from scratch, clear to new, because the other ones had got blown over or tore up, and we made them. And you had to be careful in making them. We made them on our own thing, but then this high side is lighter than the low side, and we had to build it, the stringers underneath here, 4 inches off from center. That's what we did, 4 inches off center so that it would stay level. If it didn't, well, then you see a lot of header barges that neighbors have, that this side would be hanging down like this, wouldn't go thing, but we made them off balance so that they'd stay level.
And they wouldn't upset.
And they wouldn't upset, no.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, they're made to take, the high side was always heavier, see. And we took and put the stringers a little off center so they'd take care of for the.
Yeah, I thought was just to keep the wheat from going over.
Yeah, well, see, it was put in here, see, and it was cut right in here. And then you'd stop, and another way, always had 2 header barges to every crew. Well, we did, but a lot of people didn't. Then there'd be one waiting here, and while you was going to the other end and cutting wheat, while they unload it, and they'd be back out to I even got a pitchfork. We had extras up there in the corner.
There had to be a man to load that.
Yeah, you drove every other time, every other load you drove. You get to sit down, and the other guy'd have to just customary. And
I did too.
And load.
I'm 3 years older than he is.
And the field we stacked in the center, and then we'd cut out a land, and square land, and then we'd cut a swath through the land here, and another swath back through, cut around and back through. So when you come up here and stopped, you stopped here, and if you was going west, this header bar came up through in here and didn't tromp the wheat down all the time, see, it was already cut. Then the one coming from the stack, we'd stop in between here, see, and then he'd come around and hook in. But this in here, we always stopped in between these 2 gaps, so this header bar should go up and go down through where the wheat was already cut.
There were 2 men in a header barge all the time.
There was 2 men in the header barge all the time. Now you want to get something out, Chris? I run one of them for a lot of years. You stand straddle, and this guided it. And once in a while, the guy was driving here with a header barge. If he'd get to crowding you too much, well, it was so hard to guide. And once in a while, you'd have to holler and tell him to move over because he'd crowd the elevator, see, and it'd make this here pull against him. You couldn't hardly.
Where did a man have to stand?
Yeah, where the man and how?
We just stood straddle this stick right here.
And drove the horses, stand up.
And drove the horses. And then this team here was usually tied to the beam. Of course, we always went around this way to the field, and this team here was the one that you turn. You just pull on a line, and they'd swing out and follow the header barge right around. And when they commenced straightening up, well, they'd pull in and straighten up. But my biggest problem was that one of them guys that was driving the header barge would go to sleep, and he'd get to crowding me. And I couldn't, this here, well, you just couldn't hardly hold it. I'd reach down and get a hold of it and try to hold it, and put a leg out like this here to try to hold it. And when I couldn't holler, well, I'd holler to guy in here loading the header boards.
Can they see?
Then
the
he'd
header?
holler and tell the guy to not crowd me so much. When he'd get to crowd me, well, I'd be skipping wheat,
I see you have 4 horses hooked up there.
yeah.
You
So
said you
we-
had
We had
6?
6.
It takes 6 to push that header.
Can they see the header?
Well,
part?
lots of them just had 4, but we had enough horses that
How many
we
horses
put
did you
6
have
on
to
it.
have?
we put 6 on the,
How many
on the
horses
header.
did it take then all day to run this and the,
well, it took 6 on, we had 6 on the header and 2 on the header board. And sometimes it would be a little wet and soft. We had a lot of 3-horse eveners. We had all kind of different eveners. That's what these things are. They're called eveners. These here are single trees. And lots of times we put 3 horses on the header boards. Just
Right.
different things. Lots of harvest when it'd be wet and soft.
And the wheat was heavy.
And the wheat was
so how
heavy.
many horses did you have to have
Well,
altogether?
We'd had to have about 12. Be 6 on the header and 3 each on the barge. Most times it wasn't, we only had 2 on the barge. That's the other thing up there. But lots of times we had a lot of horses, and my dad worked horses, but he took good care of them. They was taking nobody in the world. I don't think I worked. I was old enough to work. I worked for Coons and Deitzes and Hawns. I worked for Core,
All
but
was heavy.
nobody took any better care of their horses than our dad did,
What was his name?
George Powell.
Can they see the header part of that, the way it's set?
Oh, yes, can they? How do you want to put that?
Cutting weight,
A lot of time.
and it runs in here. It's 12 foot. All the headers were 12 foot. They'd run in here and elevate up into the barge. There was 2 guys in the barge, and we stacked in the middle of the field, about a quarter of a mile. It just depends on how heavy the wheat was. Some years the wheat was heavy. We had 2 stockyards, only one about a quarter of a mile. Because most of the time we could go a quarter of a mile and stack in the middle of the field. And then while this barge was unloading the stack, we was cutting another load with another barge.
What are the names of some of those parts? Do you,
What?
some of the parts of this, what are the names of some of them?
Oh, this is a reel. This is called the elevator. This is a rudder wheel that you guided it by way back here. There was a gearbox that run
Pretty
run the canvases and run the whole header and everything.
Right.
And if it would that wheel
Doesn't it
slide?
have a little brown in it?
If it got wet, that wheel would slide, then it wouldn't
Yeah.
hurt?
Yeah,
Yeah, I've had it
Imagine.
slide.
pushing that
You
one.
get,
Yeah.
You taking,
do that.
It was a heavy
you
one.
taking, going across the draw and be a little bit wet. The old bull wheel would slide, it wouldn't turn. And you'd grab this thing and push it clear down so you'd be up above the wheat because it'd stop the sickle going. Then after you got across where the bull wheel would pick up, why, see, then you could go because it'd start chewing it off. But if you didn't get it up above the wheat, why, it'd be wedged in there so tight you'd have to get out
Backed up.
and clean out your,
Now, what
Sickle.
did that do? That's what stopped the sickle, this thing you pointed
oh,
to?
whenever the horses stop, well, it stopped.
No, but this thing you pointed here, you stopped the sickle. How did you stop the sickle when it was going forward? It had a way of disengaging it or not?
Oh, yeah, it had a lever back here that you could disengage. It had a big old wheel, you know, with 4 notches in, with spring loaded, you know.
Okay.
And the collar, and you can pull it back, and that was idle.
It would disengage, put it in a neutral position or something.
Yeah.
And then it just ran over that wheat for just a
Yeah,
little bit.
it just, when it go to sliding, why, you just make sure that go up and then you just keep them having to stop and go around and dig all that stuff out. But you grab a hold of this thing here and put it raised up above the wheat, then as soon as it got on dry ground, it started going. But then there, your sickle get to. two things. And then they, in moving, of course it was, down the road or any draw when you're pulling idle, well, we put a neck yoke on this couple, team here, and hook it to a log chain, hook it around this thing here, and you're going downhill, idling like, they was the one that held it, header down back and run on
Hold
it.
it back.
And we
run
put
away.
a neck yoke just on the team here, and throw a chain around there and make it, they would hold it back from running downhill. Of course, sometimes, if it wasn't, too steep a hill, we'd put it in gear going downhill, and that'd pretty well hold it down. When you're going down the road, I just flip it over into gear, and that'd keep it from running down on the horses. And some real steep ones, well, we did put a neck yoke on here, and throw a chain around that beam, and that'd hold them running down on horses.
Now this, and when the wheat come up in here, and people just hand stacked it all the time.
Yeah.
All hand stacked.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then you went out to the pile and they pitched it off by hand.
Yeah, pitched it off by hand,
With a thrashing machine.
pitched it off on the stack.
Yeah.
See, there was 2 men in the barge, in each barge, and a special man to do the stacking. That's all he did. He
Sit
stayed
on
on
the
the
stack.
stacking.
Smooth it around, leveled it out.
We had one come from Arkansas to stack on it.
Mhm.
How old were you when
I
you
got
first started?
stacked quite a bit.
I stacked 22 days in harvest when I was 11 years old.
Gracious.
But then they, Cap worked in one barge and Les worked in the other barge. We had a couple men that had come to help us harvest, and Cap and Les was in one barge and these 2 men was in the other barge. Cap and Les, they'd have theirs pitched off and out waiting on the header, and they'd come around, these other 2 men wouldn't have theirs off. And so one day at noon, they said, well, Mr. Powell said we're gonna quit. He said if them 2 boys can unload their load and out there waiting on the header, and we can. And Dad says, well, says if I put one of them boys in the barge with one of you, split you up, split them out, and put one of them boys in the barge, well, they in there, and Captain Les was used to pitching double C, and they worked that way. Then on the first year of harvest, one of the guys said, well, Mr. Powell, said, we'll be back next year to help you harvest if you let one of them boys work in the barge with us. Dad said he would. So they come 4 or 5 years, every year. We didn't have to worry about it, because they'd write and say they was coming to harvest. And Les worked in one barge and Cap worked in the other. And I stacked, and of course the 2 boys would help me clean the,
Yeah, they throw it on.
help me keep the stack straight, see? And then then when we'd move stack, well, they'd help me clean up around, and start another stack. Then Dad's feet got sore standing on this metal thing. And so he could stack, but he didn't. So I was transferred from the stack. I still wasn't big enough to work in a barge. So I was stuck on the header. So I run the header probably 10 years. And Dad stacked, and Captain Les each worked in a barge with these 2 men. They came from Minnesota, someplace. Yeah, they knew how to pitch. They knew how to pitch prairie hay. They didn't know how to pitch wheat.
What,
And I think they liked Mom's cooking.
That was part of it.
When was the last year that you done on the header barge?
For the combine.
Probably in 29.
I bet.
Them Baldwin pull-type combines come out in 29, and everybody bought them. They were cheap enough that everybody, but we'd had a tractor head for. We had these old John Deeres and some of them old International. So we had a tractor when the Baldwin combines come out in 29. But that was the last time. Then we'd, this thing that had a little loop here, and someone to get in there and push it away up, and we was traveling along the road, move it. We farmed out 15 miles west home 9 miles northeast of Jetmore. We take the headers and we'd pull this barge clear up as high as we could, you know, let the traffic by. And we fed cattle in the wintertime with it, because you could throw it all from any side. And then you could drive up on either side to the elevator. The thrash machine had an extension feeder, and they can drive it up. You could drive up on either side. Somebody get empty while they drive out, and you could drive up on the other side. If you loaded, come in like, and bundled in there. And they,
Fancy horses pulling that.
But you had bundles in this that you hauled
yeah, bundled in
to
there,
the thrasher, with the
Yeah.
thrash machine.
That was,
That's right.
before the
Yeah.
header.
This was before the header, when you
Well,
bound it.
Even with the header, it was several years that the wheat was pretty weedy, and it was all bound, see, and shop,
And dry.
and then that let it dry out, and then the weeds would dry out, so you'd go right through the thrash machine without any trouble
Then
at all.
you'd pitch it up into this,
So we'd pitch it up into this here,
and then pitch it into the thrash
and
machine.
pitch it into the thrash machine, and drive up. And there'd be 6 or 8 racks out picking up bundles all the way
Yes.
around.
It took
And,
more.
and when you get loaded, you just drove up there and somebody unloaded what? He'd drive up behind him, start pitching off on the thrash machine. And they were, they, had the lines in my rack, I had the lines strung through here where I could grab them, and I fished on the front back there, and there was lots of rattlesnakes. And then you get to the end of the shop, if there's a rattle come, you want to be sure and where you get hold of your line, because them horses about ready to leave. And I was up there north of the Mennonite Church, Arnold Miller, Birdie knows where it was, but it was northeast of his house up there, and it was, of course, the snakes come in there for mice. And my old pitchfork was vibrating. I looked up there ahead there, and like 2 or 3 bundles, I jabbed into a rattlesnake. And he was up there on the tongue of my fork, looking down at me, rattled, but it didn't take me long to dump him. But you did, I don't care.
I'd have been like the horses, I've been leaving too.
Right.
And we had the lines down there, and then of course you get a hold of the lines, you don't drive to the other shop. Then at the thrashing time, there was a crew that pitched all the time. Well, when farmers had a lot of bundles, they'd send the pitchers out to help you load, see. They'd help you load. They were scattered all over the field, see. 6 or 8 pitchers out there, and they'd help you load, but I always loaded in front where I could have good access to the lines, because sometimes I had my own horses, and sometimes I hauled bundles for people that had pretty spooky horses.
What was the dimensions of this hay rack like that? How many?
Oh,
feet
they was
long?
8 foot wide, and they was about 14 foot long, 12,
That's
at least
pretty-
12 foot. You could get a pretty good load on them.
That's a pretty standard size.
Yeah, that was pretty standard size, yeah. And these wagons had a reach in there, and it had a pin that you could extend them out for a rack, or to extend them closer for a wagon, see.
Tell me how that worked. I don't understand that.
Well, there was a pole in here, and there was, the back wagon thing had a pole up here, and it had a metal that slid in, and you drop a pin down, and you can lengthen your wheels, your front wheels and back up. You can lengthen them about any length that you wanted, see. And we'd lengthen them out so that
This is Jim here.
Put your rack.
Was work the only
your
thing,
handlebar on.
yeah.
was work the only thing you used hay wagons for?
Then we'd,
They're here, Alice.
of course, we had
They're all here.
a rack all the time, but then we had 2 lumber wagons.
Yeah, we're out here.
That's what we put the handlebars on. We take the wagon, the green box off,
Yes.
did for harvest, and put the header bars back on the thing, and as soon as harvest over, well, we tip them over, 2 or 3 men get a hold of them, tip them over easy, and we flip them clear on over, put poles on them to keep them from rotting on the ground.
They laid out
And,
upside down all
and they
winter.
laid upside down all winter long, to keep them from blowing.
So we did too.
Then during harvest time, when you come into the yard, well, you'd put the two high sides together,
So they wouldn't blow.
so they wouldn't blow away in a storm. And we had a post that we could stick
Stick in the
through,
wheels.
stick in the wheel there to keep them from rolling.
I remember that too.
Alice knows that.
Yeah, he tells it, I remember.
Was work the
They,
only thing you used these for?
Work.
Yeah, yeah,
You never had any fun?
no, it was all fun.
It was hard work.
But I tell you right now, young people today couldn't stand what
No,
people
no.
did back
No way.
then.
No way.
Everything was hard.
Well, it'd take a while to get in shape.
They,
They could do it if they had to, but it might take 6
They-
months to get in shape.
They won't do it.
Oh, they
They
won't do
wouldn't
that.
get in shape.
Jim,
They'll go steal something first.
that header bars, we had some that rotted or thing on it, and Cap and I made 2 of them in my lifetime, started from scratch. And, of course, the high side was heavier than the low side, and we'd offset the center about 4 inches or 4.5, I don't remember, it's something like 4 or 5 inches, so that when it was on the road, it'd stay level. See, if it didn't, sometimes you'd see people going down the road with a high side, everybody'd be sitting over on the low side to balance the darn header bars. But we offset them 4 or 5 inches
To make it balance.
to make it balanced.
Okay.
But when you lose a header bar when you're busy,
It won't focus.
harvest,
It won't focus that
Wind
much.
took a
storm,
while to
rain
build
coming.
one. Yeah, you've been awful careful.
Yeah. See, one header, they're all made of,
The wagon, this was the grain hauled in, you'd back up to the elevator, where they had a shaft and elevator over there one time, and Brother Les, he was up there on that land that Lee farmed, all the green quarter, you remember
Yeah.
up there?
I told them,
And Les had just backed up to the elevator, and then this wagon here was full. So he put his lines down on the ground and was gonna change the spout over into his empty wagon. And about that time, he was driving 2 mules, old,
Skip and Teddy, or
no,
King Mall.
Tom and Jerry.
Oh, Tom and Jerry.
And them team ended whistling for a water monkey, and out went the damn wagon. And Les caught the back end of it, and crawled up, even when he's crippled, of course he was younger, he crawled up in the back end, and all he had was a scoop shovel, and the line was down here on the ground, and they was running out there. And he picked up a scoop shovel and went to beating them mules over the fanny, and he said, "Goddamn, if they wanna run, I'll let them run."
Yeah.
And before they got to the road out there, they stopped. And the mule stopped, and he got out and got his line, drove him back to the separator and backed him up,
You were stubborn.
and hooked him over on the full wagon and took off for the bend.
Yeah, mules will never hurt themselves.
That's what he figured, he knew better
They
than
won't
me.
hurt themselves.
He did, he went beating over the fanny with a scoop shovel, that's all he had in the wagon. And before they got the 1/4 mile out there at the end of the road, that mule stopped.
When they stopped us, sometimes they wouldn't start again either.
Yeah.
Dad had them lay down, you know.
Mule never get in a tight place.
Now, this is what's called a lumber wagon?
Yeah, that's
This is
called
what's called a
lumber.
lumber wagon. I've heard Dad talk about that a
Like
lot.
the old
Yeah.
lumber wagon.
Now, how many bushels would,
They held 52 bushels.
just 52 bushels, clear full?
Yeah,
That'd be 3,000, a little over 3,000
that's
pounds.
a little over 3,000 pounds.
You better come in here.
I see some, there's
And
some,
I tell you something about it,
Use one of these.
of course, we never had the seat on it, wagon there, we just crawled up here and on the step and sat on the grain, see, or stood on here, and they never had the seat on it. And then, of course, when we was thrashing, everything had to go to bend, because you couldn't go to town with the load, everything had to go, be bend, and then you could haul it later
Oh,
on,
later.
whenever it's on. And I was left-handed, and pretty everybody that drove a wagon was right-handed, and I would put the grain bin as a spike scooper, and I could get on one end and somebody on the other, see, and you wouldn't have to turn around and scoop away. And we could banjo 52 bushel off in 15 or 20 minutes without ever stopping into the bend. Because a lot of people, when they get up the front end, they'd have to turn around, and scoop off. Well, me being left-handed, it's perfect for me to scoop one way, seeing the other guy, the right hand, get the other end of the wagon. We just scoop her off.
And 52 bushel in how long?
I bet you we could banjo it off in 20 minutes.
No, what do you mean banjo it off? That's just scoop
That's
it off.
scoop. They never had no augers. It was all scoop. They had augers, but on the thrash machine, but they didn't have these little motors.
Didn't have any way to hook them up.
They didn't have a little way to hook them up because they had that auger, brought it clear across. And if the wind was anything, like you could flip around and park over on the other side of the thrash machine. And then you could get around on this side if you was out away from the wind, see? And things like that.
Now, what was the dimensions on the lumber wagon? How wide and how long?
I forget how wide they were, but they weren't very wide, but most of them are 12 foot,
12 foot long.
yeah.
They'd only be like 5 foot wide then, probably, wouldn't they?
No, they wasn't, I don't suppose maybe they was over
4 foot.
maybe 4 foot.
Maybe not that.
And they hauled this 50 bushel, 52 bushel.
Now, Dad tells about down in Clark County, and he's down there working on the roads, about hauling sand in them, and taking out the boards to let the sand out. Now, how did they do that?
They
What
took the box off, Jim, they hauled a lot of dirt, and they had standards, what we call standards, they had a thing over across there, the front end was on a pin and it was swivel too, and they had standards, and they'd take the top board off, and they'd take the box all off, and they'd floor that with tube of 6s in there, and then put a tube of 12 up along the edge, you see, and dump it in, fill it full of sand, and then you could pull one on each end, you could pull that board out and just keep
Let it
pulling,
fall out.
and just keep pulling the tube of 6 out, pull it towards you, and sand would drop down.
That's your
And-
first original hopper bottom.
And then we hauled dirt in wagons, same thing with a tube of 6 bottom, and things on there. And we had a place that'd go over with a little square hole for these little slits. And you could back a wagon in there, and then have a couple of teams with them little slits, and go get a load of dirt, and come up over there. They had a kind of a bridge like built over, over there, and dump the dirt down in this wagon, and you just keep moving forward. When you got a load where you took off, somebody else backed another wagon in there.
Probably done the same thing with sand, didn't they? Probably
Yeah.
sand.
Yeah, and done the same thing, that's
There
saying.
used to be one of those little bridges down there by Holmes's.
Yeah, there's one up there south of Gladys Myers.
Is there?
There used to be one. I hauled a lot of dirt, all over the streets of Hanston. They raised them up,
Well, I just knew about that one.
and that's where they were. They boxed it clear off, and then standard, and then they just had tube of 6s. And then a tube of 6 or a tube of 12 stood up along the head, so you kind of keep the sides, and the front end was open, back end was open. And there's always somebody, wherever you was working, somebody telling you where to dump it, see. There's always 2 men, one of them pull up the other one. Then as you unload it, you just grab a hold of tube 6 and pull it towards you, see, and the sand and dirt fall right down.
Once you got one of them broke loose in
The one that got broke loose and then get a lot of sand fall down, you reach over and pull it. It wasn't no problem, but pull them towards you, see, then you'd stack them up on this side that was clean, And when you go back to get the dirt, you'd have to get out, lay your
Put 'em
tube
all
of
back
6,
down there.
put them all back down there and put your things up to the side. Then I was gonna tell, hey, I made this thing, and I didn't put it on the show, and then I took it over to show Earl, and he says, well, you don't have no end gate in it. So I come back over there, and made the end gate would fold, just like the regular end gates in the wagon. And then they would, take that out, and then that's where they dumped it, see?
Dump it up.
They'd take it out, of course, that little lid there where you had to put it down, so the horses couldn't walk around it, put it down so they walk over it.
That's in the elevator.
Yeah, they're at the elevator. And they'd take this out, and then there'd be some grain, and then they'd drip it, and they'd usually hook it up over the wagon like that. Or sometimes if they miss and see on the way, well, they'd run, grab it, and hook it over the back end. If you, it's 3 or 4 miles to the bend, and get out there and find out you didn't have an end gate, you couldn't go back after it very quick.
I suppose it happened, but.
Yeah, that happened a lot of times, but usually they take it out and walk around to the side and throw it over the side right here close, cause the grain would be kind of fall out, you know, before they
Now,
trip
this
it.
deal in the elevator you're talking about where you run over, it tips up and dumps it?
Yeah,
You went the elevator.
Yeah. Sure, yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they, bring the elevator,
Brake on the back wheel, the brake.
Yes.
because the horses couldn't go over it or wouldn't go around it.
Now, this is the elevator we're
And this
talking.
here was just as thick as the rest of it was.
Mhm.
Then you drive in there and stop, crawl off, hold on to your line, and they'd raise up the thing and trip it and dump it for you.
Mhm.
Then you just drive up 2 or 3 feet and the horses would pull it back down, so you'd pull up and that.
I mean,
Had
it's counterbalance, and then the weight of the wagon would pull it back up.
Yeah, you drive out while
You just come up
pull
with the wagon.
the wagon while it'd
I'm
just pull it
over
right
it.
back down.
Can you go ahead and flip that switch again, cause we didn't have,
Yeah,
just
now
show,
with the wagon.
and that's what made the back end, the horses have come through, clear
Yeah,
through.
horses come through, see. And it just, your front wheel would be on this platform here and your back wheel would be down in here.
Now
But
turn
then
your-
they'd go through. They had, I was sent in there in the elevator with a team of horses and always tried to train it come through, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And lo and behold, I was in there one time, the train come in whistling, switching in, and I couldn't hold the horses, and, I was just a kid, and I was holding the line, and my feet were just sliding down the elevator, and the wheat went down all around. The guy running the elevator, he said, yeah, he said, them damn farmers send them kids in that can't handle a horses. I strung wheat all back around, and some of the other guys are waiting to load, like, I went back in, dumped what I could, and went back out there and picked up, scooped it together, and some of the other men that was helping, waiting to get unloaded, well, they'd help, kinda cleaned it up a little bit. Of course, you got some dirt, but I was still on them damn kids, wasn't big enough to handle horses.
Now, turn your horses around and show how they just go through there.
Yeah,
You know, just turn them around and say they just go.
yeah, they went, of course, there was a dirt elevator here, and they
That's
go right
like
through there,
that.
right through
Be
there.
careful, don't hurt
They
your,
won't go through
no,
there.
don't hurt your wagon.
I don't think so.
No, don't go through.
It's okay.
That's
And
where
then
you
they go through there. Of course, there was a dirt ramp up here. There was cement out here, and wing out here to haul the dirt.
But that mechanism that tilted that wagon was not spring loaded or no pulleys or anything?
Oh, there was a catch underneath there.
Just a balance type kind of thing.
Yeah, it was
I
balanced
didn't
on here.
realize that.
Yeah, I tore one down and tore that all out. And it was balanced, it was balanced on a 3-inch pipe. And they just keep tape on 2 12s together and get wide. And then they take this in here, they never had anything as big as that hole, and they'd take a brace of bit and drill all around and stick the pipe through it. It was just a big 3-inch pipe.
Just made the bearing out of
Yeah,
two
made the
welds
bearing so it was tipped, see?
nailed together and
Yeah,
I think you
and it was nailed together.
Come on in there so we can see one of these grandsons he made these for.
Yeah, come on over
Come
here.
on, Douglas.
Oh, Douglas,
Go
he
around-
played,
Go around there, buddy.
he played with all of them.
Let you know.
Here, here. Sit down now. Sit down a little bit.
oh, he for him for that.
No, he's okay.
Now you
Understand him out there.
Here, they was,
They can stand
of
up.
course, I had this up here higher, but there was all this door here.
There, you stand
There
right
was
there.
a ledge on the car, and we put a small car
Step right there.
board, you know, in there, what do we call them? You line the car,
Oh, yeah.
walkway out there,
Uh-huh.
and we take it out here and put it on this here, and then of course this spout was flexible spout, and you could shoot it forward or backwards in the car. Then they come out that you had to put screen on all your little windows here on the head house. Well, I built in a little screen to keep the birds out of it
Keep the grain clean.
and keep the grain clean. Yeah. But this was a metal flexible thing, and it hung down there, and you can shorten it up or put it in your car, you know, turn it, and it'd shoot it clear to the front end of the car. You very seldom had to get in loaded. But then I had it enhanced, and I had made a little platform up here.
But now these elevators, they had a leg in them, just like
Yeah.
today's elevators, the belt.
Yeah, they had
But they had some kind of motor to run that in.
Oh, yeah, they had an old one cylinder motor set out there, you know, choop, 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 all day long. You could tell sound of an elevator motor and they had a sound of their own, didn't they? You remember the sound of
Yeah,
them old one
right.
cylinder?
Mhm.
And then they run them all the time. Then some of the thrash machines would thrash like Sandy Hand does today. And when there wasn't any wagon coming, they was dropping it down here through a grate down here and winding it out. And winding it through there in the chaff, a lot of time chaff would blow clear out. It was windy.
In a different place, yeah.
No,
You drop it in a different place? and
No,
then-
yeah, they elevated up to the head
Oh,
house,
okay,
you know,
okay,
in
then
the
drop it,
bin,
then blow out.
then
Okay.
drop it down,
Yeah, I
let the
see,
wind
yeah,
blow through
yeah.
and blow the chaff out of it.
Yeah, I've seen it.
But them motors was running all the time because if they wasn't blowing chaff out of their wheat, why, they was elevating it up. And some farmer in there waiting to get it elevated up. I was gonna tin that thing, but I didn't. Most of them's all tin. I give the boys an idea. But Doug dumped a lot of marbles down through this thing here. What made them, they had the sound effect. The marbles would rattle. And then wouldn't it, Doug? Yeah, had a lot of experience. Lot of experience. Yeah,
Any other ones? Do we have more?
sandpaper. And the ears was all square and everything, and the legs was square, and I shaped the legs, painted the legs.
Now tell them that it's a kit and you didn't make this one.
Yeah, this is a kit, I didn't make it.
But what is it? Go ahead and tell us about it.
It's a covered wagon. It's a kit that was given to me. But I made the harness and the,
And did you
And-
drive covered wagons, or did you ride in them, or did you?
no, I didn't do that. Covered wagon.
That joke is
You don't have any covered wagon stories for us?
No, I don't have no covered wagon.
What's-
About
That-
grandma coming, your mother coming out.
Oh, yeah, she
Ohio.
come, our mother come out in a covered wagon.
Grandpa brought us, Grandpa Powell.
Okay, she come out from Ohio.
No, it wasn't Larned, from Grandpa and Grandma's.
But our grandmother
But
come
your
from covered wagon.
grandmother
She
come-
come from Des Moines, Iowa, to a county in south, in southern Nebraska. In the next winters, and she come there to 86. The next winter she come over to
Lenora.
Lenore or no Decatur, no.
No, Lenora.
Was it north? There's a little town there northwest where Aunt Lizzie lived. That's where they got their mail.
Oh, yeah, well, after, Dad and Mother was married, that's where they lived, over at that little Clayton.
Yeah, I forget. But these horses I bought, but I shaped them.
made the harness.
I shaped them and made the harness.
What,
They,
how how does that wagon, how does it compare with like this lumber wagon we was looking at before?
Oh, it's
Got the same.
It's got the
stuff?
same thing, I looked down in here, it's got the reach underneath there. It was all built, everything, but I never put them in.
Yeah, but I mean, that's just like an early version of a lumber
Yeah,
wagon?
that's the early version of it.
Yeah.
I go get my, one that I bought in Mendon, Nebraska.
Pretty good. Looks just like one. Looks like a covered wagon.
Yeah,
I know the Pools came up to our house one time in a covered wagon, so it's the first I ever saw one.
Oh,
Or
Grandpa-
not the first time I saw one, saw anybody traveling in them.
Grandpa just had, what you want, Chris?
I wanted him to wave at me.
here's another, that I bought,
You make,
but then I made the harness, the horses. I think maybe Jim and Colleen give me these horses, but some of the other horses, grandkids give to me. They gave it to me last Christmas, and then Faye helped me make the harness. I got some copper wire and made the hames
neck yoke,
yeah.
Ames
and the
strap.
collars.
For the collar, made the collar, she made the collar.
Explain what all that, has he done that yet, Chris? Explain all,
Mm-mm.
explain that harness. Now, what's the name of each piece? You talk about them pieces, but I don't know what they are. I know where the collar is, start with the collar.
Yeah, there's the collar, and these are the hames, and this is called the back band, and they had that, this was over, then they used to have just a strut down there and had a cripper that went around the horse's tail. But then finally they come out with what's called a breeching harness. See, they've got a band around here,
Do it on this
and
side.
that way it wouldn't let the wagons run down on them,
Show
because
something.
they'd hold them back.
Show us on the other side.
This side, this here is breeching, that's a breeching harness. And they had that, and then they had some straps that run down from here, down, and there was a strap that took over the neck yoke, a breast strap that run down through there, and it hooked to these here flank straps, these straps that here run down there, and they hook onto the breast strap. And sometimes you'd have to reach way under to get this because it's hanging down. And I've had the horses kick me and get me clear out of the stall. But some places it wasn't gentle. I made me a number 9 wire, like a chicken hook, and reach under and get that other
One.
strap, hook it up.
You got kicked.
Keep them getting kicked, keep them getting kicked, yeah.
You took that harness all off in a loop on your arm to hang
Yeah.
on the
Yeah,
hook in the barn.
took them all off from there, and they hook it up. And we hooked it on 2 different pegs so you can reach under and get them. Some of them, I'd hook them all on the same peg, they were hard to get, but we'd hook them on 2 pegs, hook the front end up here on a peg, and the breeching down over, this strap down over another, and then you could just thread your arm right underneath it, see, grab a hold of the hane, and carry it up there, holler, John, get over, and walk in between them.
Throw the harness on.
They wouldn't move, or you'd squeeze on in between them.
What were the names of some of your horses? Do you remember?
We had Bird and Dolly and Fanny and Lively and Maud, Midnight, and we had some mules. We had some mules who was named Tip and Teddy, and then we had some named Kate and John, and we had some that we named with swear words.
But you don't give that out, huh?
No.
Tip and Teddy.
Was that so you'd have a good excuse when you were out in the field, or what?
Yeah, Tip, Teddy, and Pete and Molly were the first mules.
We had a Molly too, we had a lot of those. James.
And we had a Fanny and Lively, and they worked them together, and I don't remember what else.
Who was your favorite team that you remember?
I don't know. You know, I like the mules.
You did?
Yeah, we had big team of mules. It was 16 hand high, and little bronc mules, they're ornery. But we had a team of mules, Kate and John, and the hands is from the weather down here. And they were a 16 hand high. That was about high as the horses. That's where they measured horses from the weather up here, their shoulder down to the ground. Of course, a hand is 4 inches, and it'd be 16 times 4. And they was good. And then and later on we had a team called Dan and Lady on them, the male and the female. And,
On the, like on the lumber wagon or any of these wagons, did they have bearings in the wheels, or they would
No,
use wood against wood?
no, they had a metal sleeve.
Metal sleeve?
Yeah, and a metal sleeve in the wagon wheel.
How often did you have to grease something like that?
Well, you greased them. You used them, you grease them. But Jim, they had axle grease, which you can't get anymore. And that axle grease stayed with them. But then you wouldn't have to have it. You take this hub off here and this nut off here, and you get hold of the wheel and go to shaking it. And then we didn't have a jack. They didn't know what jacks was. But that let that wheel slide enough that you could grease this wheel, shove it on, and shove it back over here and grease this wheel. But that actual grease was stiff. Alan knows what it, Birdie knows what it. They don't have such a thing as actual grease anymore.
Put that on with a paddle.
They put it on with a paddle, did the old paddle. We didn't have putty knives, just pick up a stick or a lath or anything and just smear it on it. And it stayed.
But when it got to squeaking or something, then you
Oh yeah,
do
you got
something about
to
it.
quick it. Yeah, in the harvest time, we just run them all the time. We'd grease it every couple, 3 days. And other time, just ordinary farm work around there, we didn't grease it that much. But it had a spool kind of over the wood, you know, and then the wheel had a metal thing in it, but it wasn't wood to wood, it was that thing.
A lot of changes.
Huh?
A lot of changes in a lifetime.
Oh, a lot of changes, I mean, a lot of changes in mine. But then we just get a hold of the wheel and shake it back and forth, and it was shelled enough that you could slide it all one way and grease the axle over here, and put it back
Yeah.
over there.
Pull it out like that.
Yeah, we just shoved them back and forth, and pretty soon you can get room enough. Make sure they didn't shove it off if you drop a wheel off.
All right.
That's what I'm saying, you could drop one on the
Like
ground.
we didn't have no jack, we'd take a long pole and put blocks over here and take a pole and raise it up. Hell, when I was a kid, they didn't know what jack was, and jack was anything. You took and lifted up with a pry pole, got you some blocks and stick underneath the axle and
Push down
enough,
on that pole.
guys
Push
get
down
out
on
on the
that
end, lift her up so you can put your wheel back on.
It's a good old days.
It was a good old
Yeah.
days.
And you wasn't, and then you couldn't back up too far because it was screwed. The big old nut was screwed on there, you know. And as long as you go forward, it kept screwing. But you'd back up while the dirt and grease in there would unscrew them. Then that was the way down. Then they had the,
Had to keep going forward.
yeah. And this kingpin, their clevis pin down there was a pin, and it was a wrench for these wheels, and it had a bar out there, you know, just to whip for it. And you take that pin out of the double tree there and unscrewed you. But they're big old,
I've seen
they're
that.
big old.
You don't have one of those down here on your board, do you?
No, I wish I had one.
Yeah, I've seen it somewhere.
That was a wrench for it. Or toss, you never look, but if you'd hear it bang, well, you know, when in the water.
You didn't miss that one.
It's called a bang board.
Bang board.
Bang board.
Is that what it's really called?
That's what it's
Bump
called.
board or bang board.
Yeah, or a bang board.
Okay. Did you tell Chris how old you'll be
Yeah,
Sunday?
I'll be 85 Sunday. I tell some people and they say they don't believe it. I said, I don't give a dang what you believe in.
But that's what I tell them, you're just a day older.
You're 91.
Oh, somebody 92.
92.
I'm the oldest one.
Here's a bunch of square nails. And these here is some horseshoe nails. And this here's a hog ringer. I used all them. And this here's a leather punch. That was a necessity when you had to header canvases. And here's a rivet machine. That was a necessity when you had hornet. Here's a rivet to it. Rivet lots of leather that was broke. Here's a curry comb.
Show them the kickers, pointing the cattle kickers for milking.
Yeah.
Douglas, see
Yeah,
out
I had
there?
them. Never mind. I've used them. I broke heifers with them there hobbles. I didn't intend to be kicked. Here's a,
They're hobbles, how do they work? I don't know.
they just went around the front of the cow's leg and then hook over their hock.
So they couldn't kick it?
Yeah, so they couldn't kick.
I see.
You just put them around the front of their legs and hook it over their hock. Around in front of the legs and hook it over their hock.
Oh, I see,
And
yeah.
they couldn't move.
Couldn't kick you.
They couldn't kick you. And here's the scale. They call them yardsticks.
Balance scale.
Here's an old ringer. And these here are the old wrenches I found in the field after the blow dirt blew them off. I found a bunch of them rings. And Earl Keir gave me this. And it's Model T radiator cap.
Hold it still for just a second.
He asked me if I knew what that was, and I said, you're damn right, that's a Model T. Radiator cap, and he gave it to me. My collection here.
Single tree clips up there. The single tree clips. Up above there, they hook on the single trees.
Yeah,
That
a whole
part
bunch of single trees.
goes on the wood. And
On the wood. Here's some old bull devils, spikes.
What do they do?
They used to put up feed, they slide along and they put up feed.
have a piece
Buck
of
rake.
wood. They
Yeah,
Is up there.
You stood on it and.
Protected the piece of wood so it didn't split and break off.
And here's a spark plug range, old style. Fit a Macy Harris spark plug range. Here's a Case combine. They had spiked teeth.
About what year, do you know?
Oh, this in here was probably 1927. Here's a bridle bit, horse's bridle bit, and here's the old style that bridle bit that they all had. All the work horses had bits like that. So sometimes they was unruly, did it letting them hands while we'd wrap baling wire around that. That brought them to the attention.
What's the hook deal over here on the side of the?
Oh, that's a grapple hook. You doesn't use work on wells, you don't have rope, and slush bucket or something. Drop that down the casing and find the rope. You put it over to get your rope. If you got over here, why it would slide. See, if you drop a rope down the well, you
Yeah,
it's a
retreat.
grapple hook.
Hold up one of those horseshoes and mule shoes. I want to see the difference.
Now here's a mule shoe.
See this difference in the shape.
Yeah. And here's a horseshoe.
Hold them up side by side. Look at that.
Horse and mule.
Yeah.
Smaller thing.
Big difference there.
Yeah.
Doug, what's the thing you think is the coolest up there?
Now here's
You
one.
spent a
that
lot of
Doug-
hours looking at
Here's
that. I'm
one
sure.
Doug gave me. He found that in the grade school grounds. That's a homemade one. Doug brought that out to me. He found that up at grade school. Yeah. Hadn't been wore some.
Yes, it is.
What's the thing you think is the coolest up there?
But you remember finding that on grade school? Doug brought that out to me.
I think the thing I found.
You like that the best, that horseshoe?
No, I don't. Actually, I kind of like the old horseshoe back then.
Oh, that ringer? It's because you didn't ever have to use one, probably, huh?
It's sure different.
Now I use this here in the south. This here's an old jockey stick. They call them jockey sticks. Any horses that they had the lines in the center, and then they tie the horse out here back to trace on this other horse, and then put this to the outside bit, and this to ring on the hang of the horse, and they jockey him out, and you could next horse out there. I worked broke sod one year with 8 head of horses, all strung out here.
Sideways?
Sideways, yeah.
And you use the jockey strip
Yeah,
to keep them that far
yeah.
apart.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that went between
They
from
jockeyed
horse to
out.
horse. I see.
I had two sets of horses jockeyed outside the ones with the 17 with the lines.
And then,
And of course you pull them or when they'd step over with that, took the bit, they'd all step
during
over.
the other, that's where they hooked was up by the head,
Yeah,
by the bit, hooked
Yeah,
on the side of the bit.
it hooked on the outside bridle bit, and this inside over here hooked the ring in the hang, the other horse's hang. And then they had a horse in there, we had another one outside.
What is that? 3
You'd
feet?
hook it to his bridle bit,
Looks like
hook
a little
that into hang.
4 feet maybe.
Oh yeah, it's longer than a yardstick.
Yeah.
I can't tell what I'm looking at.
That's a homemade deal that
Yeah,
somebody,
it's homemade deal, yeah. Made 'em.
it wasn't necessarily a commercial thing that anybody
No,
knows.
no,
but
Some of them was made out of wood.
Okay. Well, Chris wants me to do this, thing for our quilt show, and so, my name is Birdie Macy. I was born in 1903. I'll soon be 92 years old. And, I guess I'll start here with the very beginning. It started with my grandmother, and she taught my mother how to sew. And then my mother taught me when I was a little girl. I just wanted to run that sewing machine, the worst kind. But every time I sat down to it, the minute my mother left it, it would not do a thing. And so I thought, I'm going to watch her and I'm going to see what she does. And when I seen her put that presser foot down, then I got busy and I was in business. So my mother thought, well, if I'm going to sew, why, I might just as well make something. So she cut me out some 9-patch blocks, and I suppose I just probably sewed 2 little blocks together, and then she got me to get the block together, and we made it into a quilt, and we tied it into a comfort. And of course it's worn out. I wish I had it, but I don't. And so now I'm going to start here at this showcase here, starting with my grandmother. She taught my mother. I don't have anything of hers but her thimble, and I have my grandpa's thimble, and they both sewed. They tell me that Grandpa even helped make the baby clothes. And so that is all that I have of my grandmother's, but I have some things of my mother's. And so we'll move on. In this showcase are some stencils that my mother made that we marked the quilts with. And
How'd she make those?
she made those by using a razor blade and cutting them out so that you could draw around them. And there's one that is made out of heavy paper. It's got little holes punched in it. And you took ball bluing and you crushed it into a thin cloth and powdered it on your block. And you only did one block at a time, but it eventually all faded out. You didn't have any marks on your quilt. And so on the wall, I want to mention Golden made this, a wall hanging. It's really a beautiful thing. It's called String of Hearts. Is that right? String of Hearts, I believe. And all along the wall is other wall hangings. There's a star and a little basket. Okay, on the table is a yo-yo spread made back in the 30s. It's all cut by hand and sewed by hand. And the lining on it, it was a wedding gift of a gold bedspread that has never been washed. Now, you want to go to the quilts back of us or go on down?
Sure, we can come over here.
This is the last
They don't get any choice.
quilted. This is the last quilted quilt that
Stand
I
up
have.
next to it.
It's hand cut and hand machine sewn, but it's machine quilted.
That's okay.
And it's the only machine quilted quilt I have.
Okay.
This one is an applique quilt.
Who made it?
I made it back
Got when?
back in the 30s, 35 probably. And the design that it's set together is called Sawtooth, and I designed the feather quilting to follow up. And this quilt is completely lined with 10-pound bleached sugar sacks. They were real
Pick up a corner and
fine
show.
print.
Let's see.
And it's completely lined. They bleached out till they're white.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
this next quilt is Sherry
Oops.
Bailey. She pieced it, and it is a log cabin in shades of pink. Very large and very pretty. Let me see. There's a little heart
Log cabin.
log cabin. There's another little tiny log cabin piece, a larger little house. There are some plain blocks, and there are different things hanging on this little wall hanging. It's a little kitchen wall hanging, and it's got buttons, it's got cinnamon sticks, it's got cookie cutters, it's got gingerbread, it's got buttons, and even a tiny little egg beater or cream whip, about the size you'd use in a cup. Very interesting. Okay, up above me is it's a lily quilt of a type. Let's see, they call it the flower basket. I don't think they call it a lily quilt, and it was pieced by Golden. I go back to the hearts, and that was pieced by Chris. This little kitchen thing was thing that we talked about was pieced by Chris. Now we're at the corner, and here is a little wooden cradle and a little quilt that I pieced for Golden's first baby, a little boy. It's a kind of a little monkey wrench. It's done in blue and white. Also on the corner is a little quilt that Casey Bailey pieced. She pieced some of these for all of her little girl cousins.
And has given them all away.
and has given them all away. There is a hearts quilt here, and this is made by Golden. On the wall is another one of the little doll quilts. There is a little wall hanging, and it's a little piece boy and a little piece girl, and it's quilted with little hearts in the plain blocks. Also hanging on the wall is the rabbit quilt. Let's see, a Golden pieced this quilt for her grandchildren. Next to it is another rabbit quilt, and I pieced it for Golden when she was a baby in 1932. Next to it is a little tiny wedding ring that my sister cut down and pieced for Rosalie. And I had saved these quilts till the girls were in high school. And one day I was upstairs and I took them up and I put them in their cedar chest. They each had one. And one day I heard them coming down the stairs and I thought the house was on fire maybe. But they each one had a quilt and they had never seen it and they didn't know what in the world it was all about. So they found out what it was all about. Also in the corner is a little boy and girl quilt that Golden made for one of her children. She made that for Bruce, and it is applique. Next to it is a little baby faces embroidered, and let's see, this was made by Golden, and she made it for one of the great.
For her daughter, for Lori.
She made it for Laura, for her daughter.
But she didn't finish it until
But she didn't get it finished.
Hannah Jane was born on Lori's birthday.
And then it got to go to a granddaughter. Okay. Also hanging on the wall is another overall boy and a girl quilt that
Sunbonnet Sue?
Sunbonnet Sue, that I pieced for my granddaughter, my youngest granddaughter, Meryl and Charlotte's daughter, Charlene. And it's hand quilted. All these things that you see and that I've talked about are hand quilted, except the little quilts that Sherry Daly pieced for her little cousins, and they tied them.
Go ahead.
All ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is a sailboat quilt that I pieced for my son. I started it in the 30s, and I finished it at probably about 50. It's quite large. It was all hand cut. It is machine pieced, and my daughter-in-law, Meryl's wife, and I quilted it. It's all hand quilted.
Okay.
This is called the Dresden Heart, and Lori pieced this one, and it's done in really pretty colors. And the owner is Lori, and it is hand quilted. It's got little bows in the top of the heart block and some really cute quilting around the border. This is a fan quilt that I pieced, and it was made in probably in the late 30s. It's all hand cut, machine pieced, and hand quilted. And the owner now is Stacy Peterson Milliman. I had given it to my daughter Rosalie. Okay, now you want to, but I didn't get it finished until later. It is applique, it is birds and baskets. It was hand done by Birdie. I did all the quilting on it, and the owner now is Golden Macy Peterson. Okay. This is next to my oldest quilt. This was pieced by my mother.
What's her name?
maybe Puff Powell back in the 20s. It is machine cut, machine pieced, except a little applique for stems and leaves. It is completely quilted by Birdie, Powell Macy, and maybe Puff Powell.
Who owns it now?
This quilt is Storm at Sea. Golden seen the pattern and she liked it, and so I sat down and designed it. I did it by just cutting and sewing. It's in 3 colors, dark, a medium pretty blue, light blue, and white. And it's all hand cut, machine pieced, and hand quilted. And a number of years later, the pattern came out, and it was almost exactly the same size as these pieces that I just pieced off of a piece of paper. The schoolhouses, and this is made by Sherry Peterson Bailey, and it is probably hand cut and machine pieced, but it is hand quilted. Okay. Top is called the Nutcracker, and it's pieced by Stacy Peterson Milliman, and she is the owner. I think I fail sometimes to tell you that some of these still belong to them. And it is, I hadn't seen this before. Is it a Santa Claus? It's a Santa Claus.
It's a nutcracker, the top one, Stacy's?
Yeah.
It's a nutcracker.
Nutcracker, okay. Down below it is another applique type of wall hanging. These are wall hanging. Sherry Peterson Bailey pieced it, and it's a type of applique in deep colors. It's very pretty. Down below that is a Santa, and it's machine pieced, and it's made by Golden Macy Peterson, and it is hand quilted. Going back to the top again is the Carolina Lily. It was made by Golden Peterson, and the owner is Lori Peterson Soul. Below that is a Santa Star. It's a partially pieced star. It has then the face and the whiskers and the little cap that is on the Santa. The eyes and the little lips or tongue are beads. The nose is a little piece of the material. The star is pieced, and it is hand quilted. Not very much quilting on it. And down below that is a little angel, and that's made by Golden Macy Peterson. And it's machine pieced and probably hand quilted. I don't see the quilting. Lori Peterson Soul, and it is houses and trees. I imagine it's hand cut, and I know it's machine pieced, but it is hand quilted. Okay, here's a little cedar chest, and in this cedar chest,
Who made it?
this cedar chest belonged to, is it Rosalie's?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Rosalie's, and it's made out of walnut, and it was made by her dad and her uncle way back in when she was just a little girl. There's a pillow, a crazy quilted pillow, and it was made by Birdie Macy, and it belongs to Chris Peterson now. It's made out of velvet, and the blocks are embroidered, and the seams are done with fancy stitches. There's another pillow, and this is made by Golden. It's called Card Tricks, and it's a little tricky thing to piece. I remember when she was doing it. I don't know that I want to do one. And it is hand quilted. Also on the chest is called a puff afghan, and these little blocks are made out of corduroy and velvet corduroy and flowered material. The little blocks are stuffed, and then it's tied from, it has a back on it, and it's tied from the back. Also, on the cedar chest is a log cabin afghan, and it's done in, of course, starting with the red block in the center, which was traditional, and it's done in lights and darks of beige and light blue and brown. Okay, here is a large quilt. It is called, let me see, it's called the Broken Star. It is the star in the middle and the broken pieces around the edge. Pieced by Golden Macy Peterson. The owner is Bruce, and it is hand quilted. It's very, very beautiful, quilting. This is a flower garden quilt. I started it back in the 30s, and I only got sidetracked and I didn't get it finished. And then I picked up the threads and started in again. It is completely cut by hand. It's pieced on the sewing machine, and it's set together on the sewing machine. I gave it to my son-in-law, and it is machine quilted. Okay, the next one is a butterfly quilt, and this one is pieced by Powell Macy. The owner is Chris Peterson. I had given it to my daughter, and now it belongs to Chris. It was hand cut, it's machine pieced, and hand quilted. Okay. The next one is airplane quilt. It's done in, the airplanes are all colors. The maker is Golden Macy Peterson. It's set together with blue strips and white corner blocks in between the strips with red stars, pieced red stars. It has a red, white, and blue border. It is machine quilted, and it belongs to Matt Bailey. That's Sherry's son. That's Golden's grandson. Here, and it has two Afghans in. And I pieced both of them. One belongs to Bruce, and one belongs to Chris. One is a sort of a monkey wrench, and the other one is, I think it's a broken dish. I think that's called a broken dish. Okay, over here is a sewing machine that Golden learned to sew on, and on it are some blocks that I made for my sister. It's the bow tie, and I made for my sister when she graduated from high school in 1935. She never put it together, and it isn't together yet. It's just here. I think there's 20 blocks. It's all in shades of pink. On the sewing machine is a quilt that I'm working on now. It's called Star of David. It's a little six-pointed star in all colors, and it's set together with a very pretty pink, and that forms another star. On the wall are some samples of, I think, Chris, are you working on these baskets?
Lori is.
Lori, okay. There's some baskets on the wall in the process of being made. They're little piece baskets with applique handles. And on the other wall, now I can't tell you what.
Those are Bernice's.
These are Bernice's?
And there's a picture of her in her graduation dress.
Okay. And those are more of the neckties. Oh, yes, the picture. They hung, it was taken outdoors, and they hung a crazy quilt that my mother had made on the side of the house. You had to take pictures outdoors then. And that is my sister when she graduated in 1935 in the white dress, and that's my other sister by her. in between them is my nephew, Francis Salmons, and the two little girls are my little girls, Golden and Rosalie.
Aren't they cute?
Down here in the rocking chair is the quilt that I learned to piece on the paper. Chris helped me get it started, and she sewed a little bit on one of the blocks, and I finished it up, and it's Chris's quilt, and I'll help her finish quilting it.
You did that just this summer, didn't
I
you?
did that just this
You learned how to use the rotary cutter and
how to use a rotary cutter.
the flip and sew paper piecing.
Yeah, right. The star quilt that we just talked about, I had the stars pieced, and I'm putting them together, so it will be my 1995 quilt. I don't think I'm going to start anymore. A little tree and some houses, and this is done by Stacy Peterson Milliman. The little houses are pieced more or less on little strips like you would make a log cabin. I hadn't seen this quilt, but I know what they are. And the little trees are just two pieces coming down, the little long pieces, and they filled out the corners, and they filled out the bottom, and the little house, and the house has got a door, and the house has got doors and windows.
What about that butterfly one?
Huh?
On the wall to the north, you missed it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
You probably didn't see it, did you?
No, I didn't. This one is made by Golden, and it's a pieced butterfly, and it's unusual the way it's set together. It almost looks like flying geese. It looks like a butterfly and flying geese, but she just calls it butterfly, so this is what we'll call it. Okay, over here by the house and the our windmill minus, and these are done by Sherry Bailey and Chris Peterson. About the tiniest blocks that you ever hope to see.
12 pieces in each 1-inch square.
12 pieces in each square. But they are tiny, tiny, but it is pieced, and they are hand quilted. Okay. Hanging down on the front of the piano is it's called the stretch star. It's kind of looks like that the wind had blown it out of shape. I don't know just exactly what happened to it, but this was made by Golden Peterson. And let's see, there's another one over here, a tiny little boat, and let's see, this is made by Golden, Macy, Peterson, and it's machine pieced and hand quilted. And I have told her that I thought it was the prettiest wall hanging she has. I don't know, there's just something about it that I like. Okay, sitting on the piano is a picture. Golden called me one day and she wanted an old quilt. I didn't know what she wanted with it, but I took her in too, and I mean they were old and worn out. And she wanted a picture, and I said, well, when I was young, and I said, I don't know whether I've got any pictures or not. But I looked, and she said, what about the one where you're holding the sunflowers? And I said, well, I forgot I'd given it to her. But anyway, I told her I just didn't have anything, and okay, she said, and we just dropped it. Well, on about my 89th birthday, they had a supper for me, and all the kids and the grandkids and all were there, and they all brought something. And when I unwrapped this package from Golden and Jim, well, here was this picture and a piece of this quilt. And the background is a kind of a old rose pink velvet. She's cut out an oval, and my picture is there. And I was 17. There's a piece of a Dresden plate quilt, and a little inscription that she had to put in the quilt says, a quilt is more than pieces of cloth sewn together. It is a labor of love that honors forever its maker. And so she had made that for me, and it was kind of a shock. The next picture is my father and mother. My mother was born in 78 and my dad in 1880. And the next picture is my 4 living children. And of course we've lost Rosalie now. The next picture is my grandmother. She's in her 90s
In this picture.
in this picture.
Not still.
Yeah, no, she was in her 90s. And I had a letter. Her name was Molly Matson Huff. She wrote me a letter, and she always made her birthday dresses. I have 2 pictures of her, and she has on a different dress in each picture. Above these pictures is a little wall hanging done with white on white for the background. What are the piece blocks?
It's called tea rose.
It's called a tea rose. It's a little piece block. There's 4 in each little block, and the little blocks are about 2.5 inches square.
Can you read the sign?
And it's okay. Oh, here it goes. The maker, I didn't read the sign. I'm sorry, Chris. The maker is, the name of it is Tea Rose. The maker is Chris Peterson, and the owner is Grandma Macy. Well, this is the first time I knew anything about that, because I hadn't been in to see the show. It had been cold, and I just didn't get to.
What is it? What did it say? I think it's about time somebody gave you one. You've given all these away.
Okay, the next one is the maker is Chris, and the owner is Diane Yemens. She's made it for a gift.
Well, she bought it at our mini
Oh,
auction.
she bought it, okay. In the center is a rose pink, and it's bordered with a flowered pink. It has a bouquet in the pink center. I'd say the center is about 10 or 11 inches long by 6 inches, 7 inches wide, maybe. The flower is, there's applique stems, and the flowers are made, and they call it ruching. Now, I have done this work, and I didn't know what it was called, but that's what it's called. And so the little stem, there's 2 little real dark flowers. There's 2 real tiny blue ones, a little purple one. There's a larger rosy colored one. There are leaves. There is a stem of old bluebells or something on that order. They're made and they're hanging down with a little center. And there's a few buttons. It's just a really neat something. The next picture is a picture of my father and mother and my brothers and sisters when we were all living. I'm the oldest of 9 children, and there is just 2 sisters and 1 brother left now. And the picture on the wall was made for my 90th birthday. And the next picture is a picture of my grandmother in her 90s before she died. And standing right next to her is my mother. And in the back is one of my brothers. They all went to visit my grandmother. And all of my mother's brothers and sisters are in that picture but 1, and of course nieces and nephews.